Welcome to the Chicago Home Partner Podcast. I am your host, Amanda McMillan. Join us each episode as I have experts in all of the different fields of Chicago real estate as we unpack and digest what's actually happening out there. So in our industry, it's rare that you team up with somebody that's in a different facet of the industry and stick together for decades. I am truly honored to have our next guest here, Jeff Eichhorn, top architect for Debaker Design. He has been doing amazing work in that field for about 2.5 decades. Our careers aligned very early on. We met 2 decades ago, and he has been my number one source to go to throughout this time. One of my favorite things about Jeff is that he came from a very large corporate-run firm. He spent half of his career there and then ventured off to the more boutique lifestyle of an architect. And so I always have appreciated that he's been on both sides of the spectrum and brings with a wealth of knowledge in a format that most people can digest very easily. Jeff, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
In my opinion, renovation and construction and home upgrades in general have been slightly paused. I know your firm hasn't seen it, but in general, we've seen a slight pause throughout the COVID years because people were very intimidated of the costs, the delays, the supply chain issues, all of that good stuff. People are getting much more comfortable with it now. So what are you starting to see in terms of the current trends in your line of work?
COVID really started a need for home offices. Right. So
that
everyone
is the
was
understatement of the year, I think.
Yes, right. So actually when COVID started, that started a lot of projects and finding ways for people to be able to work at home. And that's continued because even though COVID's let down, a lot of businesses took a look at how often do they need people actually in an office, and they could save money or people have more flexibility. And consequentially, more people are working remote, some full time, and some just a few days a week, some in the office a couple days, at home a few days. In either case, there's really a need for a dedicated office space in their house. So we've been getting a lot of projects where people need us to come and space plan a little bit on the interior, reorganize some of the rooms, or maybe an addition. But really looking for something besides having that extra bedroom, it's their office, it's a guest bedroom, it's an exercise room, it's a laundry folding room, right? They don't want that. They want a space where they can do a Zoom call and there's not a blurred out Peloton in the background, right? So it's a dedicated space, not in the basement, it's on a main floor, something that they could use now and in the future. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be going away anytime soon. So a lot of home offices, I think.
Super. No, and I obviously it's the new way of the world, right?
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
live differently in our homes. Remote work is a very big aspect of it. I mean, I love the way that you kind of mentioned what I call the multifaceted room, right? Everyone says, I need that extra bedroom because it needs to take on all these roles. But the fact that really people are prioritizing that. Is there anything else that you've seen that has been a kind of a more popular thing, whether it's in maybe kitchen remodels or wanting more storage or exercise rooms, as you talked about?
Yeah, I mean, as far as other spaces like that, I mean, especially in the city with so many old houses, a lot of projects are going to be mudrooms, getting that extra storage, because most of them just have a back door that goes right into the kitchen, which doesn't work great. You need a spot for all the boots and shoes and coats. We have 4 seasons for sure. So a lot of mudroom projects are popular. And just getting that extra storage. In addition to that, we see a lot of, again, because of the old homes, a lot of projects involve redoing a kitchen, but really having it open up to a family room space, right? Sometimes it's not necessarily the full open concept, as we'd say, but having a family room that's adjacent, a little more accessible from the kitchen, where you can keep an eye on the kids while you're cooking and things of that nature, and it works a lot better for modern families. A lot of that type of a project.
No, I think and that makes sense, right? As I say, we spend more time in our homes now, and we want to utilize the space a little bit better.
Absolutely.
The formal spaces are kind of teetering off a little bit more. We don't necessarily want to give them up, but we certainly don't spend our time in it, but kind of making the house more usable.
Absolutely. We're definitely looking to maximize the use of all the spaces in your house, right? The living room, the place that we would say is a spot for your grandmother's furniture to be on display.
Is that with or without the plastic wrap?
It could be either way.
I should preface, my grandmother would never have plastic wrap on her furniture, but I had friends growing up who did.
Yeah, right. You got to keep it clean. Every spot needs to be used, right? We don't have enough room in the house to have a spot that isn't used at all, or it's used maybe a few hours a year, right? For when you're entertaining. Similar with formal dining rooms, right? Those are used less and less often, and more of it's a space for everyday eating where you want to use it. So really looking at the square footage of your house. And, with building costs being higher and higher all the time, what can we do within the space that we've got? How can you maybe reorganize, moving some walls around so that you're using every part of your house on a weekly basis?
For certain. No, that's great. What would you say as people are kind of navigating these roads? What are the biggest mistakes you see consumers either doing or that you're catching before they do?
Yeah. TV's above the fireplace. Not really. It's just a pet peeve of mine. I really dislike that. But I know people love it. And now they have some TVs that are like gallery where they display art and it looks very pretty.
Getting better.
Not my favorite. But seriously, though, I guess I'd say when they're doing projects, it's important to really consider not just your immediate needs, but the future and how that's going to grow. We find a lot when people want to do a project, there's usually some sort of problem they need to solve right then. What is this? Because they have little kids and the little kids are in another room and they need them closer to the kitchen. So we're doing little playrooms or things. How do we do this so that it can be a room or a space that will adapt, right? Do we do a room that can be a playroom for the kids now? Then it can become a homework room for the kids. Then it becomes a teen flop room as they get older. And then when they're gone, it's a spot for mom and dad to maybe sit and have a cup of coffee or something. So
is the teen flop room, is that a professional term?
It's a professional term. Yep. Learned that in school for sure, where the teens will flop.
No, and I love that you hit in on that. I always try and express to my clients, the most important thing to me in a property is flexibility.
Yeah.
Because we know what we need today.
Yeah.
We know we need something different a few years from now, but we don't exactly know what that is. But if we have a property that can evolve with us,
yes,
just like a renovation that can evolve, that gives us staying power. And staying power can be a fantastic thing.
Absolutely. And we see that a lot, especially we find with young families, right? When we've had young little kids, it's all consuming in your life, right? So it's hard to see the past. You kind of feel like, this is my life for the near future. So when you're doing that mudroom addition that we're talking about, the kids don't have as much stuff right now, but as they get older, they're doing 2 or 3 sports. You've got all sorts of sporting equipment and bags. So how does that mudroom work from when they're little kids to when they're older and you need that space? So we want it to work without doing another renovation project in a few years.
For certain. And that's where I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit. I should preface first and foremost, Jeff is not only a top architect to many of my clients, he has also personally designed our basement, which has become our haven in our house.
That's great.
Which one of those things that I said, even with all of my mindset, I kind of know where things are going to be. Jeff came in with ideas that so were past my professional expertise and created something really great. But what would you say? I think a lot of people are a little intimidated about engaging an architect. What would you say are the real benefits of bringing an architect onto the team in a renovation?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. I think the best value of an architect is that they will come up with more creative concepts than you would on your own, right? And I think one of the real advantages there is to, at a schematic design early on in the process, is to look at a bunch of different ways to solve the problem, quote unquote. What is it that we're looking to do with the project, the renovation or the addition? And you look at it in many purposefully different ways, and we'll present those ideas to the client and go over the pros and cons of each, right? Because there's going to be trade-offs for the different decisions you make. And the real goal here is, while it's really simple, just lines on paper, let's look at all the options, good and bad, so that when you move forward, you feel confident in the decision you've made, right? We don't want to spend your X amount of dollars and just be okay with it. Or you're in construction at a while, like, well, what if we would have put this bedroom here or done this? We've answered all those questions, hopefully, before you even start. So you can feel really good about the project that you're doing and the money that you've spent, because it's a significant investment to do a project. And you want to make sure that money is spent wisely. I
actually will specifically remember, and this is why I have to share it, I was so tied to our basement remodel and keeping the bathroom near the plumbing lines, the sewage lines, because I wanted to keep the cost low on that aspect. So I hadn't even really thought about anything else. When Jeff came in and presented this idea of putting the bathroom all the way on the other side and said, hey, this modification with how you guys are doing the foundation is not a big cost. So I had myself, even a very well-educated person in the realm, had learned something totally new. And we absolutely went that direction because all of a sudden I got a bathroom with a beautiful window that I wasn't going to get anyways. And it turned out great.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned a lot of great things, and I want to transition on to the next aspect of our conversation. I think a lot of people in general are a little intimidated of the scale of a project when the idea of an architect gets involved.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden it feels more grandiose, more expensive, just a bigger project. So can you talk to me a little bit about kind of that concept and that thought process, how you guys come in, how you work with clients, and some of how your work with the clients can actually impact the cost and sometimes on a more positive level?
Absolutely. So I think one of the first things that we would do before you even hire an architect, whether it's us or whomever it might be, is you have that initial meeting, walk through the house with them, talk about the project goals that you have. What do you have in mind? And then really be honest about the budget that you have for that project and what you'd like to spend. That architect should be able to give you an idea if that's realistic or not. And that's also important because then moving forward with design is that we can make decisions that will help keep that project within the budget that you've got. If you're not honest about it and we're not sure what it is, we'll have some ideas that can be all over the map just to give you different solutions, but then you might be, well, now this is too expensive. So let's just be honest about what that is and we can work towards a budget. Additionally, what we like to do is we break the overall process down into different smaller phases. So the first phase is going to be like a schematic design or preliminary design. When you do that, we find that it's important to take a pause. We have a design that we like, very simple at this point. Start talking to contractors as well. Bring them in, discuss a little bit of ballpark budgets at that while we have it. No one's going to be able to give you a firm price at that point, and that's okay. You're just looking for roughly, where is this coming in?
Are we playing on the same field?
Absolutely, right? So before you take the investment of going through this design process, all that time and money, let's see where we're at first. And often we recommend actually partnering with the GC earlier on. Maybe you're not signing a contract with them, but here's a GC that we like, we think we could work forward with. Because then what they can do is, in conjunction with the architect, is actually prepare more detailed budgets. And that helps protect you about where you're going to be in the end when you have the construction documents finished. So are we on that same page? And at each phase of the project, we stop and we look at the budget again with the contractor, modify the design, and go forward in that slow process.
No, absolutely. And from what I'm hearing, it's a lot about strategy and planning.
Yeah, a lot of planning. And that's, I guess one of the mistakes people make too, I would say back to that, is going too quickly. Like, give yourself some time to go through the process. I know when you decide, like, I want to do a project, you want that new kitchen right away, right? You don't want to wait 6, 8, 12 months to have that done. So it's hard to maybe slow down, but allow yourself to have some extra time to study the designs, do some budget studies. It takes a little bit longer, but you're going to have a much better product in the end.
So I think the other thing that people really kind of get stuck on with regards to kind of is what projects are best to engage an architect on. I mean, obviously we know we're building a new house, we need an architect.
Sure.
We're trying to, to do a complete kitchen remodel. We want to move things around. We need an architect. But I think most people are pretty surprised that you guys work on smaller scale jobs as well.
Sure.
As you mentioned before, kind of the home offices. So where do you see yourself most brought in on these smaller scale jobs?
So I would say that if you're looking at doing just some simple finish changes, like new tile, new countertops, maybe replacing some cabinets, probably don't need an architect for that. Although some architects can deal with interior design elements as well, and that's a good value for it. But working with a designer might be a better starting point. If you're getting to the point where you're looking at maybe we're going to start moving some walls a little bit, expanding the space, then I think it's worth having an architect come in, because not only is it their space planning ability to help lay out the most efficient use of that space, but then there's also a lot of building code and structural elements that come into play. And you want a professional that is familiar with that to make sure that you're not doing anything that's going to be dangerous down the line. So
we're not doing some of this?
Exactly, right? We want to make sure that it's going to be safe and it's going to stand, and we're not going to have
No, that makes sense. And the way that I would digest that is, if you're just putting some makeup on it, you're probably not the best first call. But if you're going to do a little reconstructive surgery, a little facelift, that's when you can kind of come in and really add your value.
Absolutely.
As people are making improvements in their homes and modifications, they're always curious to make sure that they're doing things that are hopefully adding more equity than not. Some people are just saying, screw it, I just want whatever's for me. But a lot of people want to make sure that they're doing things that are adding value to the home versus distracting.
Sure.
From your line of sight in terms of these, are there things that you see that you feel like are really adding overall to, maybe you don't know the value, but the overall aesthetic and flow of the house versus things that you might say, oh, this is something that I don't think works quite as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the heavy hitters, so to speak, I would say probably, I would assume add the value, because these are, I guess, we're downstream from you in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. They buy the house. Very common for clients to come in and want to redo their kitchen, open it up a little bit to have a larger family room to the kitchen.
Yep.
So those are going to be, I think, high value projects. They're expensive, the kitchen, one of the most expensive places to do anything in. So there's also a time element that comes in. How long are you going to stay in this house, right? If this is a house that you're like, I'm going to be in here for a couple of years, 2-3 years, don't gut the entire kitchen because you're not going to get that money back. Unless you really want to enjoy it for yourself and just be comfortable that you're not going to get all that money back. But if you're there for a few years, then these bigger projects really work because they'll add that value to the house, make these changes that buyers would probably want or be looking for. So yeah, like kitchens, bathrooms, the mudrooms, finished basements will add a lot.
What would you say? Is there anything that you've said? And my guess is that they're probably less classic changes and a little bit more personalized. But in terms of things that you kind of say, feel like they maybe take away from the flow or the function of the house?
Yeah, I would say, if you're going to do things that are, highly specific to your tastes.
Red lacquer kitchen cabinets.
Exactly. Like those can be pretty sharp if you have that. It looks like the Ferrari cabinets. I've seen those and they're awesome, but they're not for everybody, right?
Yep.
It's often why you'll see a lot of neutral colors, why it's such a popular choice, right now. It looks great and it's a safe choice. We are starting to see actually a little bit more color come into play, I think, here coming up. This kind of goes back, I guess, to trends, but colors are going to become, I think, more popular, which is exciting.
Right. I think that we have been in a very gray palette. I'm not a huge lover of gray, but it's been obviously everywhere. We've seen a tremendous amount of it. And I think now we're going to see a little bit more pop of warmth and color. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I think so too.
Okay, here's a good question for you, kind of going off the mark here. Somebody's first having this thought process of, I want to renovate my kitchen. I want to do some work in my house.
Yeah.
Who do you think the first call should be to? Are you the first call that somebody should make?
I think talking to an architect first is good. I would say it's either going to be that or a general contractor, right? I think it's good to start with an architect and then sort of go from that point, just because we can work with you a little bit more on getting the design to what you really want first. What I like to say is if you start talking to the contractors first, you could bring in a few contractors to talk about your project. Without any drawings, it's no way to understand if they're talking about the same thing. It's more pointing or gesturing, and that's, what is it? Are we really talking about the same project? If we get through that initial preliminary design phase, then you have something on paper that you can start to talk to contractors about, and you're going to be on the same page. It's more of an apples to apples comparison when they're talking about their timing and the budget and are they qualified to do that work? So if you start with the architect and you have at least a base document to work from, I think you're going to be more successful in finding a contractor that's a good match for you and for your project. So I like to start with an architect.
No, I agree with that. I'm going to edit that a little bit. I hope personally that my clients are coming to me first.
Well, of course.
To then say, which architects do you trust the most? Because I've weeded through quite a few of them. And as you know, I actually like to stay involved in the process as well.
Sure.
Because I can add some foresight on making decisions that are worth investing in and making decisions that are going to have a little bit more staying power on the backside, right?
Absolutely.
And that's where a lot of times we work together with some of these things to say, how do we have a product that at the end satisfies the needs of the client, is very saleable on the backside, and we were conscious of the budget in the end. And it all comes back to that whole idea of teamwork, which is one of the things I really always appreciate about you, is that you're not the person that draws the plans and then says, peace. You are invested in the project until the project is done. Yeah,
definitely. And we're really good, I think, about tailoring our services to the client's needs, right? We'll be as involved or not as the client really would like. We like to be involved more, but there's some flexibility in there, and that helps too with the budget, right? How much do they need the architect for, right? If someone wants to do and they're hesitant to use an architect, but they want it for some space, we can come in, do the necessary drawings that you need to get this project good. It's going to be a great flow, but maybe you're good at picking out the plumbing fixtures and the tile on your own. And you want to do that or excited about it. You don't need us to do that, but you can use us if you would like. So having a flexible service package, I think, helps with that.
No, and I like that fact that you have that ability to be a little a la carte. I often talk about it, that I think some of the intimidation of using, whether it's a designer or an architect or anything else, is that you kind of see the way the media portrays the industry. And you don't realize that you can have a situation that's customized to your very own.
That's true. We are portrayed a certain way in the media. Usually it's black with like a cape or something like that. Although I did realize this morning that most of my clothes are very dark. So I guess that is true. But yeah, I think it can be intimidating, I think, to start to work with an architect. But having that initial meeting with them, for us, it's just a sales call, right? There's no charge for it. Just a conversation about what you're looking to do. And I think once you start that, you'll realize that we're pretty approachable people.
I would back that.
Right. And, there's the mystique, I think, will wear off maybe pretty quick. And it's, we're here to help you and guide you through the process, really. So, really our job is to not only just create a project that's going to work well, function well, aesthetically beautiful, but help educate you on the process, and help guide you through it as much as you would like us to or not, and just be your advocate.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, I can't thank you enough for being here. I am so happy that everyone else got to see, and get to know you a little bit more, just because I think so highly of you. I think so highly of your work. You are incredibly approachable in what you do. And just thank you so much for being a part of this.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I can't even wait to introduce you guys to the next guy. This guy is such a backbone of what we do. Paul Kepner of Paul Kepner Staging. Paul has been making us look so good for so many years. He is the founder and the owner of his staging and interior design company. Now, he's been at this for almost a decade and a half now.
Yep.
Goes quickly. And as I said before, he is the first person we call when we want to make sure our listings shine, and the first person we call when our clients want a little help making their own home shine when they come through. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. I appreciate you asking me in. Time to talk about some design stuff.
There is nobody that I trust more in this space and this realm. Let's jump right in. You know my thoughts on it, but I want to hear yours. We recommend staging our listings a lot on any level and any scale, right? Not everyone always needs Paul's services, but they always need some, what's the word you use? Some zhuzhing.
Some zhuzhing.
Zhuzhing. I've learned that from Paul. So talk to me about why staging in regards to real estate and home sales is so important.
A couple of reasons that that staging is the big hit and in demand that it is right now, because not everyone is a decorator. Well, a lot of people think they are, but not everyone is a decorator. And people don't have a lot of vision for where things should go, how things should look, and what have you. So much like how people are attracted to a model home, you're out looking and you want to see all the new style, all the patterns, all the colors. Staging really helps a buyer see how it would be to actually live there. And an empty condo, house, unit, trailer, whatever you're selling, just doesn't look the same unless there's stuff in there. And people actually fall in love with the items that are in there, even though they don't come with the property.
They can.
They are available. I can get you a price. They want to see how they would interact with it. And so staging a house, basically the excitement, the curb appeal is one thing. You get inside, people are so excited to see what they're going to find inside. So it's really a curiosity thing. And then it's about scale. The big thing is this going to fit, how do you make furniture fit into a room where the room is at its best usage? How would it feel to live there? If I sit on the couch and look around, where am I watching TV? Where am I having dinner? Where are my kids going to play? These are all questions that people have. They may not voice them, but they're the questions. So staging helps solve that. You can drag a bed into a room, but will a queen size bed fit in this room? A lot of times an empty room doesn't show that a queen size bed or king size bed will even fit in there. And people always assume that the bed is larger than it actually is. So when you actually put it in there, then they go, oh, there's plenty of room in here. And that's the nice thing about staging is it shows scale and then it shows possibilities. And one of the big things this day and age, with all the HGTV, with all the television programs, everyone already has this long list of what they want in a new house. So they come out. It used to be, maybe some hardwood floors, or maybe some granite countertops. No, that list now is long, and it's quartz countertops, it's Carrara marble bathrooms. The list goes on and on and on. So when you come in, you stage a property, even though, Joe and, Janice buyer have this long list of ideas, as soon as you show them a property that may not have every single one of those items, as soon as you show them something that's staged and, in today's trend, they go, oh, we'll change those later.
For
So it's a great distractor.
No, and I think you really hit on so many great things there. First and foremost, people like things that are pretty, right? That look good. We are wired as human beings to be attracted to beautiful. Yep. That doesn't change when it comes into the property. Now, as I tell all my clients when I'm sitting down with sellers, and it's one of two things. Are we looking at a vacant home or are we looking at a staged home? Anytime I know that the home is going to be vacant, I say this: if we're going to be vacant, we need to be impeccable, because if not, every scratch, every nick, everything will show. So if you want to go the vacant route, we definitely can, but we need to buff the floors. We need to paint every surface. We need to do all those things. Or why don't we stage it? Because if we stage it, we will distract from all of those things, and then we will add scale, we will add size, the property will grow, and it'll be on trend. And the point that you didn't make, one of the things that you do that just blows my mind all the time is you take slightly dated properties and you work with a color palette that neutralizes those god-awful cherry glazed maple cabinets. It's like a skill set. I can't even express it enough. You have this power to use, it's not a power, it's your expertise, but it's a power to use the foresight of the colors to downplay some of the wounds, so to say.
That's why I always like to look at a property first ahead of time. I often I'll say, hey, Amanda, can you meet me at the property? Yes, I also want to visit with her and catch up. But meeting at the property, you get to get a look and feel for what the style is. Is it more traditional? Is it transitional, contemporary? Where is the house sitting already? And then those things that may not be favorable to a buyer, how do we take those, pull them in, and make them so that they're endearing and part of the fabric of the home instead of like an eyesore, and like you said, anything that is left, at chance that is not, updated or staged, people are going to nitpick for, and may be the reason they don't buy. And so that's what we really want to do is we want to say, hey, these things are part of the house. You could always change them if you want, but look how great it works now, and so our properties really do show like model homes, and people literally want to move right in. And that's tugs at the heartstrings and gets people. And this is my favorite one, ever since the last probably 4 or 5 years, is with this crazy market. When people see a house that's staged and they like it, they know that, Tom and Joanne, who are behind them, can look at the property, are gonna snap it up if they don't. So that's why this is more of like a trigger pull of like, hey, if we don't buy this today, someone else will. And that's true.
No, it's very true. And I think one of the things that you said that I think most people lack the vision to really put together a space. And I think one of the things that you do so well is you make the properties relatable. People come in and they can see themselves in that space. Now, for me, right, as somebody that's advising people on the cost effectiveness of it, I say hands down that the money spent on staging will be two things in my opinion. Number one, less expensive than all the touch-ups in the world.
True.
And I usually can be pretty strong in saying I feel like we will sell for more than what the investment is. Is that a fair assessment?
It really is. I mean, there's a lot of accounts out there you can find online that says that a staged home will sell like 75 to 80% faster, as far as more money. When you have people competing and fighting over something, you're going to get more money out of it. And I've got some crazy examples over the last couple of years of how we created this bidding war over houses from the staging.
No, it's been fantastic to watch. Now, not to put you too much on the spot, and I know every situation is different. I think a lot of people are intimidated by the cost of it. One thing that I really like about how you run your business, which is very different than most stagers will charge you for every little piece along the way and then charge you monthly to keep things in there. One of the things that I've always said as a real estate provider that is advising staging is that you are a set fee operation all in.
I believe in our product, and I believe the agents, brokers that I'm working with are going to price the house to sell. Everybody wants the house to sell. Yep. Seller, the listing agent, me, everybody wants the house to sell. So as long as we're all on the same page and price it correctly, I have all the trust in the world that it'll sell quickly. And so I put it at a flat rate So if my stuff stays there a month, great. If it's there for longer, not great for any of us, but great.
We're all working on it.
We're all in it together.
But as an advisor, where I like that, right? Let's say we get on the market, we sell quickly because it looks so beautiful. I don't necessarily want to pull that stuff until we're past our contingencies, because I don't want to pull it out and God forbid we have a problem. Doesn't happen often, but it does. Then all of a sudden I'm back to a vacant house. So I love with that, I don't need to tell a client to spend more money for an extra month in the way that we handle it. So I can tell you, I certainly appreciate it, and I know our clients do as well.
Well, I'm either incredibly smart or incredibly stupid. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but either way, it works for a lot of the folks I work for. So it's.
I say the proof is in the pudding, and I think you're doing pretty good.
All right, excellent.
Okay, on that note, we are going to shift, because obviously staging is something that you are the absolute expert on. But that comes from your incredible hidden talent of interior design, okay? The interior design element is one of the things that I'm really excited about, because I think a lot of homeowners are very intimidated about working with a designer, because I think so much of what's promoted out there is such a big scale. That's all, and especially, right, somebody's buying a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo for $500,000, they may not feel like they are at a point where it makes sense to have a design consultation or something like that. And one of the things that I've always loved about you is that you don't come in and say, I'm all or nothing. You're happy to help with the pieces to put it together to be really a great fit. Sure.
The consulting aspect of that from a design standpoint is very important. You have to have someone that you're comfortable with, and not someone who is just trying to put something in their portfolio that they've never done before. Like, how about purple? No, that's not really what we're going for. For me, it's about making a home for yourself. You have to live there. I don't. So you should love it, but I can help certainly steer the ship in the right direction. Sure. Tell you what the trends are, not necessarily even trends, more like what I call archival decisions, like a decision that's going to be great today and, 5 years down the road. I don't need you to call me every 2 years and we change your entire house. You have to make some good decisions that are going to classics, staples, that you can edit down the road. Oh, some new throw pillows or some new artwork, move some stuff around and you have a new house. So that's where you have to make some really good decisions, and having a little guidance never hurt.
I still remember the story of, we have clients that we mutually worked with together. You staged their house and you did interior design for them, where you got them to buy the most fabulous dining room table that I literally walked in and I said, oh my God, where did they come from? And they said, Paul found that for us. Anyways, so let's get a little bit more into 2024. What are we expecting in home design in 2024?
Well, things are, the last year or two, we've been a lot of this California coastal business. Everything's neutral this and neutral that. Things are starting to kind of, drift away from the neutral. Gray has been king for years and years, but it's kind of, it's run its course. And oddly enough, I hate to say it, but brown is making its way around again. And what you have to understand is oh, brown, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's two earth tones out there that really run the show. You have brown, which is a color of dirt, and you have gray, which is a color of rocks. So either dirt or rocks. We've been rocks for a while. We're heading back to dirt. But
we're getting muddy, people. We are getting muddy.
It's time. The biggest thing is we're going back to more of a white canvas with houses, and then adding color in other places. And I know it's a big one, but the white cabinet thing, although everyone loves it, does make your kitchens really bright, especially if they're sunk into the room and it's dark in there. The white kitchen really does help, but we're going for some different colors for cabinetry. We're doing less cabinetry. We're doing more display stuff. Open shelving. So that's a big thing. So don't be afraid of color, but use it powerfully. So it's not super in your face, but it can change with the time. So
I like that.
So that's
using color powerfully.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, right? Let me unpack that and digest that a little bit. Grays aren't out, but they're not the stronger force.
Yeah, don't paint your entire place gray.
The browns and the brownish versions of gray,
yes,
are kind of creeping back. We're getting dirty.
Yep.
Use more of your powerful colors in things that maybe can be a little bit more changed out.
Yes.
Throw pillows, throws, maybe. Would we do an accent wall? Or is that too much?
Well, the accent wall days have sailed. So we really want, if you're going to do an accent wall, you want to do it with like a board and batten or a wallpaper
Wall
or
covering.
some treatment instead of paint. Paint really isn't a treatment. Paint is really paint. So we want to do some type of treatment. So it's a little more established. Anyone can paint a wall.
On that note, are wall coverings doing well?
Wall coverings are, back and better than ever. And they're not just for walls anymore. You can do the ceiling instead.
I love a good ceiling detail.
A stairway, like the ceiling of a stairway. If you have like a 2-story, there's so many applications. It's not reserved just for a wall anymore.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know you also mentioned on the open shelving in kitchen.
Yes.
That's something that terrifies me personally. I am a little too OCD for that, and everything would have to be impeccable. And I just like the ability to shut the door, not with a glass front either. But I have seen quite a bit in terms of the open shelving. Does that mean we're just getting rid of more stuff, or we're hiding it elsewhere?
Well, I mean, you can only cook with so many pans and have so many dishes at one time. So this is really a little bit about editing.
My grandmother just rolled over in her grave.
I know.
Just so you know
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm sorry, Grams. But yes, there's, as long as, if you have a pantry or you have enough, stuff, storage for your regular stuff, that's great. But we really generally have so much stuff in our kitchens that it's, there's space to remove a couple cabinets and we can put the Cheerios in the pantry, make room and put those pretty things out there. What people are never going to ooh and ah at your closed cabinet door.
Good point.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's the question, right? Renovations, even design renovations can get very, very expensive. What are some of the favorite ones you like to recommend to people maybe that are trying to be a little bit more cost effective?
You have to decide what is going to get the most bang for your buck. Like I always tell people, if you're renovating, be renovating for the next guy. So make the decisions for yourself that are going to bring in the bucks later. So, make classic decisions. If your trim isn't white, make it white. If your trim is white, maybe it's time for it to become charcoal. Do charcoal trim indoors. There's different ways of using, those dollars to renovate, to bring it up to date and even step forward. Look ahead a little bit. And that's where you call your designer and say, hey, I've got, X amount of dollars to spend. Where should I spend it? And then we want to stretch that out so that you're making the right decisions so that you don't have to do it again. Or if you decide to put it on the market, call Amanda, you're ready to do that. I always tell people, any money you put into the home, put it on now so that when you're ready to call and sell, all you have to do is call. You don't have to have her come through and go, you need to do this, you need to light this up, you need to change this, change it out. And the B part of that is lighting. Lighting is the number one, especially condos in the city. I always tell people this is my best secret is if I'm in a condo building of 2, 3, 1,000 condos and I'm going to list, if I have the same light fixtures as every other person in that building, when I go and look at 4 units in that building, they all have the same light fixtures. If you've changed yours and you have new lighting, whose condo am I going to buy? That one. Because it means that you are updating, you're upgrading, and you just stood apart.
No, that's a great tip and a great point, because those are the things that we talk about, right? Smaller scale, changing out knobs, changing out lighting, maybe changing a mirror, adding a backsplash. We talked a little bit about wall coverings. Wall coverings, the price of them has gotten a lot more affordable. You can spend an arm and a leg on wall covering, don't get me wrong. Yes. But there are some more affordable options for that too, just to give that little zhuzh to the details. Property.
It's the details. The devil is in the details, and that's what makes you stand out, what makes you special, and that's it ties back to the staging. We bring in details. That's really what gets us noticed from photos to when you get into the property. It always looks better in person
for certain
than it did in the photos.
What is your favorite home furniture store to shop at?
I am a value guy. I am driven by
Midwestern mentality.
Like I am not afraid of a treasure hunt. And so a lot of my furnishings come from either outlet stores or places that are discount. I'm a sale guy. So a lot of my stuff, I grab at Crate and Barrel outlet. So I have beautiful, very expensive furniture that I've picked up because someone ordered it and then said, nope, I don't want it. Sent it back, ends up at the outlet, and then it's in my cart and at my warehouse.
Well, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is that the Chicagoland area has some great outlets, Crate and Barrel, Restoration Hardware.
Yes.
What other ones do you shop at?
There's an Ashley one way out in the suburbs. But there's a lot of discount. And then Macy's also has one up in Skokie. So there are, I don't want to give all my secrets away, but
tips, not secrets.
That's the best way. A lot of these places, if you order something online, by the time they take it back and blah, 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 they'll send it to one of these other places and then mark it down because it's cheaper for them to discount it than to send it back to their own warehouse and stuff. So I've got a pretty good thumb on that stuff. And then I'm buying things that I can use in a lot of spaces. Not every piece of furniture works. And, if you're staging a $250,000 condo or a $7 million house, those things don't always match up. So there's quite a range, but the nice thing is there's, between CB2, Crate and Barrel, there's a lot of neat stuff you can get that has good legs that can go contemporary, can go transitional. And that's where we'd like to stay in a range.
Awesome. Well, Paul, I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm so excited to get you in front of everybody because you are such the guy behind the scenes in all that we do. He makes our listings beautiful. He makes everything we do beautiful. And we just loved having you here.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great.
Who doesn't like money? I know I do. And today I've got one of my favorite people to talk to about money with us here on the show. We have Dan Tresmer. Dan Tresmer is the founding partner of On Path Financial. They are based out of the western suburbs, but they work nationally, maybe even internationally.
Just nationally.
Nationally.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back in there. On Path Financial has been at it for the last 2 decades, and Dan has been invested in this industry for almost 3, which means that together we're getting a little bit older. And on top of all of that greatness, Dan manages our money. So thank you so much for being here, Dan. You are a wealth of knowledge as an expert in the financial planning industry, and I'm so thrilled to introduce you to our viewers.
This is great. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to dive in. And the reason I really wanted you here, because buying homes and home ownership, whether it's for themselves as a residence or as an investment, is such a part of somebody's bigger financial picture.
It's a big asset, right? Yeah.
I think a lot of people just don't always get that. They kind of say, like, I'm renting, I want to buy a house, but they don't always think that there is a bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I really enjoy best about you is that you look at the big picture and you are, like me, a strategy guy. Mm-hmm. How do we take all of these pieces and put them together?
That's the key, right?
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, because it's such a big deal, especially with our people, I'd say our entry level, our first time buyers, is saving up money, budgeting for a home purchase, right? That's a lot of money when we talk about it, whether you're looking at 5%, 10%, 20% down with the prices and the values in the city. We're talking about a big chunk of change. What are great ideas and how do you work with your clients to set them up for success in home purchases?
It's a great question, and it's a big goal. It is. It really is these days. It's sometimes.
Wait, let me interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah.
Is it one of the largest purchases that your clients will make in their lives?
Absolutely.
For the most part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I think you need to take some time with that. So I think when you look at strategies and pitfalls, first and foremost, I think it's really getting used to living, financially speaking, on the other side of that purchase, right? So there's some things that we naturally think about. As you're showing places, what would the mortgage be? Property taxes, HOA, but there's home ownership can be sneaky, right? There's a lot of expenses that,
surprise!
Right? Yeah, there's things that you have to do. There's things that you have to do, right? And I think that's one of the things that people discount. So, more than anything, I think you do this well, and when we're brought in early, is really helping them think through and get used to the other side of that purchase in a very proactive way.
So when somebody is getting ready to purchase, what do you think some of the most common pitfalls are that derail their path to purchasing and saving up that down payment?
More than anything, I think it's really making sure that the good financial stance that they go into it with occurs on the other side, because on the other side for a lot of these folks is a lot of unknown. Maybe it's new territory. So just making sure, when we talk down payment, right? Just making sure, for instance, that, they're not spending down every last penny of their liquidity. Then all of a sudden they get on the other side and they've got that big purchase out of the way, and now they feel themselves strapped again. So can't say enough how thinking about life on the other side financially is so important, even early on.
No, that's a great point. And I so often talk about being house poor.
Sure.
You absolutely do not want to be house poor. I will talk so many of my clients out of pushing themselves to get that extra criteria box checked, because at the end of the day, it's not worth it. It doesn't matter if you have the most beautiful home that you're so proud of, but you can't furnish it and you can't invite your friends over and you can't buy that bottle of wine, and you're going to live in a constant state of stress. So I love that fact. I love the fact that you're coming back to, what I'm hearing is it's about having a plan and a strategy and probably a pretty good budget in there too.
It helps, right?
Right. And don't overspend.
Yes.
Don't overspend.
Yes.
Okay. So here's a big thing, right? And I sit down, I get the people sometimes before they're kind of figuring out the financial aspect of things. And they're all trying to say, okay, what are the best investments? I've got this money. I've been doing right in my finances, right? I've been investing in SEP accounts. I've been investing in IRAs. I've been putting money into the markets. How do I go about tapping into that money? And from my understanding, there really needs to be a lot of thought process on which accounts you're looking at and why.
Yeah, for that purchase, for that down payment as an example. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at, there's the different types of money that's out there. We all have long-term goals. Retirement would be one of them. And a lot of those vehicles are set up to be geared towards, 60 years and older before you can tap into them. So I think even early on from a savings standpoint, when you're saving for some of those near-term goals like a home purchase, you really should make sure that you're saving in accounts that are available now. And when you think about, okay, it's time to buy, how much do I have to put down? How much do I want to put down? Again, I think you need to look at that through the lens of other things that you have going on out in the next 3 to 5 years. So what assets to liquidate, stuff of that nature. It's not only here and now, but also maybe having somebody beside you that can help you look a little longer, just making sure that what we are selling, how we are structuring things like a mortgage is going to fit not only today, but 5, 10, 15 years into the future.
Totally. And you know me well enough now that if I know a little bit about something, I need to know a lot. So for me, it's about having somebody that I really trust to be like, well, I don't want to know too much about it because then it'll cause my brain to spin. And real estate is where I want my brain to spin.
Absolutely.
But I even remember that there are times when you may say, hey, we're going to sell this at a loss because we need this to support something else. Which I think the common consumer would say, wait, what do you want me to lose money to put myself in a better position? That doesn't make any sense at all. But of course, you're looking at the bigger picture of how to get us to where we want to be.
Yeah. It's, taxes can be a common thread around everything, right? So,
Yes.
Sometimes a loss from a tax standpoint is not a bad thing. I think the other thing too is, we deal, sometimes a home purchase is, it could be a multi-generational event too, right? Oftentimes we see, parents, other family members coming to the table and helping out with a lot of those things. And I think that your questions of, hey, what do we give? What do we sell? I think there's some strategies there as well to be mindful of, maybe for those parents who want to help out with that down payment. When we think about helping out, we think about gifts. Oftentimes we think of cash, right? Just going to write them a check. Well, talking about what assets to sell, there's oftentimes looking at, if you're a parent, looking at your portfolio, thinking about helping out a son or a daughter with a down payment, you could think about, I would encourage you to think about maybe those appreciated assets, those stocks that have run up in value, and maybe gifting those instead of cash. Anytime we gift an asset like that, we also gift the tax basis. So the parents don't have to incur that to sell. They gift the tax basis. And maybe in theory, son or daughter is in a lower tax bracket. Well, we can let them pay the tax.
Deferring the tax.
Yeah,
into the lower bracket.
let them pay the tax, and then maybe they can use their cash to reinvest and reset that cost basis. So again, I think around every corner, the commonality is there's a lot of thought and planning that proactively should go into these big decisions, right?
Well, and one of my favorite things that we did, especially at the end of the year, and as you said, gifting is a big part of what we do. There's a lot of of parents and family members that want to help their kin get ahead in this. And obviously it's a lot of money, but especially at the end of the year, I'm going to forget what the exact number was. It $16,000 last year that you could gift without a penalty, or was it 17?
I want to say 17, and I think
right.
in 24 it's 18.
You're right.
Yep.
So $17,000 gift could be given to somebody tax-free. And at the end of the year, we had a lot of parents that were doing that. And then what they were doing is, as soon as we got to January 1, they were giving $18,000.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we got to a $35,000 gift, tax-free. That's a 10% down payment on a $350,000 condo.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, isn't it? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just good strategies and good things to note. Anything else that you would really consider or think is good advice for people to think about when they're thinking about how to pull together these down payment purchases?
Yeah, I think, more than anything, I think it's just, even that people that are programmed to save, I think how you are saving early on and making sure that you're diversified in that respect. Again, I think that first job, maybe it's a 401k, there's a company match, you absolutely should do that. But if there's anything in my career that I've seen, even for people that have that savings habit down, it's maybe just not being mindful of how they are saving. In other words, there is such a thing of deferring too much money to longer term goals. And then all of a sudden some other important priorities like home purchases come up, and they have a lot of money saved, but it's restrictive. It's in vehicles.
Not in a
it's in vehicles
position
where maybe there's some options, but maybe they're not ideal options to pull that money out. So planning's everything.
Right.
Proactive planning is everything.
I'm admittedly guilty of that. I like to never touch the money that goes over to your way. I just want to leave it there, and hopefully someday I'll retire, even though those that know me best, I think they're going to say I probably will never retire.
I might be one of those. You love what you do too much.
I love what I do.
Yeah.
And just kind of finalizing that thought process, because this is a lot of times I do get people that come in, especially in this day and age, which I think more and more people have cash. Mm-hmm. If somebody's trying to value, should I finance a property or should I pay cash? What's some thought process on that?
Yeah, we get this question all the time. It's probably
especially as rates went up.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is the one piece of analysis that we do more than ever before. And I think there's a couple of things. One is oftentimes, and especially with the younger ages, maybe you have a long-term trajectory from a work standpoint. I think the calculation, the math that is completely valid is looking at what is that mortgage cost? What is the interest rate? Are there any tax savings to that, such as being able to itemize mortgage interest that may bring the true cost of that down? So maybe if the headline rate is 6 or 6.5, maybe that's not the true cost of the money. And then the thought process there, and the analysis is, do I feel like I can earn more outside? Do I have do I have the potential? So I think that is an exercise that is very, very valid. I do want to say though that when you start getting closer to the desire to be financially independent, and I don't talk, we used to talk about it in terms of retirement. I don't really talk about in terms of retirement anymore because
we retire differently.
Yeah, the notion of retirement is completely different, right? But as we're approaching that phase of the desire to be financially independent, it's really about cash flow at that point in time. So there's sometimes even in a low rate environment where you can maybe go grab a mortgage at, that started with a 3 or a 4. Remember those days? Yeah. Oftentimes the right answer is to either pay cash for a property or at the very least to have a plan that is consistent with when you want to be financially independent. Because again, the part of the key of that realm is trying to lower what you need. And if the mortgage is not there, you just need to generate less income. So it's not a one size fits all, but I think, but those are a couple of the discernments that we help clients through as they're thinking about, okay, if I have the flexibility of how much to put down or how to orient this mortgage, again, planning, proactive, being able to guide them through that decision, it's important. It's a big one. So
true. And obviously, what's behind this curtain. My philosophy is always, I love diversification, right? Real estate is my passion. And it's also my profession, and I love to invest in real estate. But for me, it's not just about buying one house with cash. I want to have multiple different, a portfolio of homes that are generating income in their own way.
Absolutely.
While we're diversifying with you. So for me, I love the lending vehicle because it gives me more bandwidth But you're correct. It really depends on what somebody's circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, leverage when it comes to real estate is a powerful thing, right? It really is. And I think we're going to, in this little blip that we've had with higher interest rates, it's going to be short-lived. We're going down. Maybe we don't get back down to the 2s again, and that would be okay. But a mortgage and using leverage to build wealth is very common, not cavalier at all. It's a great way to build a portfolio of real estate. It really is.
As I always say, those lower interest rates were a cause or an effect. Let me rephrase that. They were an effect of world catastrophe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're okay to not see that again for a while.
Amen.
Anyways, let's transition on to the next question. This is a topic that I think it's misunderstood. I think people are raised, they grow up, they start making money, they know to save. But the reality is as I had to learn the very hard lesson, you can't just make good money and ultimately hit a certain level of status, right? Your money has to work for you. Absolutely. So if I make money and I put it in the bank, I'm not doing myself the service of letting my money make money and having somebody to advise. So tell me a little bit more about why. I know why, but why do people really need to consider aligning themselves with a fantastic financial planner to help them achieve their goals?
Thanks for the question. It's a great question. And I think there's a lot of parallels, between what you do and what I do, right? And I think where it starts with, when you're doing it well, is really that consultative guidance, right? Our job is first and foremost is to listen, to ask good questions, and really get at the heart of what is truly on the mind. Where do the clients truly want to go? Once you know that, the transaction, whether it's in my world investments, in your world real estate, it really is. That's just the means to the end. The transaction is not the heart of the relationship. The heart of the relationship is really that starting with that guidance and that questioning. I think knowledge is something that is maybe discounted. Listen, in your world and my world, there's a lot of self-service options out there right now, right? So if somebody's going to hire us, if somebody's going to engage with us, there should be true value there. And I think that the knowledge base, sometimes folks discount how complicated our worlds can be. And it's why the world works, right? We all do what we do for a reason. What really builds on that knowledge is experience, right? I mean, we're far from old. But we've seen a lot. We've seen a lot, though, right?
Yes.
We have seen a lot in our respective careers, and just think through whether it's housing markets or financial markets. Boy,
there've been a lot of roller coaster rides in there. Let's just remember that.
And you can't discount the learning and the knowledge that comes out of that, right? And I think that is so important. And I think, again, a good expertise, a good experienced professional, boy, you just can't learn that. You can't learn that out of a book. And I think that's important. I don't know if you see this in your world, but in our world, and I can understand how this happens, but clients tend to have what I kind of refer to as a recency bias, right? Good or bad,
right?
What is happening now? They have a way of just extrapolating that and just thinking, well, that's the new normal. That's the way the world is going to be. And as you and I know, if things are really good, they're not going to stay really good forever. And not if, but when things are challenging, we always get on the other side of that. And I think being able to be by their side and help them think through and traverse whatever that is, that comes with knowledge. That comes with experience, right?
I love that you said that. I was raised, I've talked about this before, I was raised in an environment where there was such a pressure for perfection. Mm-hmm. It is now a word that I say is, I hate the word perfect because there is no such thing. But I was raised with that. And it wasn't really until I got into business that I started to realize that as an advisor, my best growth came in a time in which the adversities were happening, right?
Absolutely.
That's when I was growing my first. And I really talk about the idea of failing forward, right? Yeah. Because to be the best at what we do, we have to fall down. Because if we fall down, that means we challenged ourselves that hard. And then it's how we get up, how we rebuild, and how we keep marching on. And as you said, you're almost 3 decades. I'm 2.5. That's a lot of falling down, getting back up, empowering through the market, and doing it in alignment with the people that we represent.
Absolutely. I think the last key of that too, and I know you believe in this, is that when this consultative approach to what we do works really, really well, it's in the context of a team, right? A team is everything. Realtor, financial advisor, CPA, mortgage broker, each having the client's best interests at heart, each staying in their lane, each communicating with one another. That's really, really powerful. And that's what the thing I've always appreciated about your approach is really making sure that you've got a great team around your clients. And again, we at On Path try to do the same thing.
Absolutely. So one last question. I know a lot of people are sometimes intimidated about engaging in a financial planner. They think that they're not quite at the level where they need planning.
Yeah, I don't have enough yet.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm not there yet. What would you say? When would you most ideally like a young professional reaching out to you?
The earlier, the better, right? And I think one of the things that we do a pretty good job of is getting that dosage right. You know, this is not a one size fits all industry, one size fits all relationship. And oftentimes we're able to customize that solution to what people need. And again, we've got a great team of financial advisors. So, you know, maybe they don't need somebody with the experience that I have, but we've got a wonderful team. It's always the earlier, the better. Yep. And I do say, never take for granted that you're not ready yet, because the guidance that anybody would be able to bring alongside, it's valuable. And oftentimes, just the proactive nature of that is everything. If something's already happened and they're bringing us in, well, at that point, sometimes it's too late, at least in that context, right, to provide guidance. So earlier the better. I understand how intimidating it can be. We try to make it not so much. But yeah, sooner the better, I always say.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure having you here. I so appreciate being able to share you with everyone and your wealth of knowledge. And I hope that people feel confident to reach out to you to hear more about what you can offer.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having me.